Dr. Catherine Marshall stared at her reflection in the polished marble walls of the Galactic Council chamber, adjusting her perfectly pressed diplomatic uniform. 15 years of service had taught her to maintain composure, even when her jaw ached from forced smiles. The chamber's artificial atmosphere tasted stale, filtered through 6 different purification systems installed specifically because of human presence. Dr. Marshall, you understand our concerns. Delegate Zixus's translator warbled, their iridescent membranes fluttering in what humans had learned to recognize as discomfort. The incident in the lower markets cannot be ignored. 3 sensitivity-class species experienced elevated stress responses merely by passing near your Earth food district. Kate fought the urge to roll her eyes. The incident had been nothing more than humans eating spicy food in their designated area. The fact that some species could detect capsaicin through their advanced olfactory organs wasn't humanity's problem. They'd already agreed to eat behind protective barriers. Honorable delegates, she began, her translator converting her words into the 27 recognized languages of the Council. The Human Systems Alliance has complied with every reasonable safety measure proposed over the last decade. We maintain separate living quarters, use specialized environmental suits during medical procedures, and even modify our ships to dampen our electromagnetic output. The Xarlaxian representative, Superior Guide Ven, rose from their hovering platform. Their crystalline form caught the chamber's light, casting prismatic patterns across the assembly. Yet incidents continue to rise. Just last cycle, one of our diplomatic attaches lost consciousness during a routine meeting. The cause? Human aggressive pheromones. Kate's translator barely caught her muttered, because your attaché forgot to take their prescribed anxiety medication. She quickly raised her voice to address the chamber properly. The medical report clearly showed the attaché had a pre-existing condition. They failed to follow their own doctor's recommendations. A murmur rippled through the gathered representatives. The Mediation Guild speaker, a towering mass of purple tentacles named High Mediator Cruel, raised 3 appendages for attention. We have reviewed the incident and have prepared a proposal that will address all concerns while allowing humans to maintain their presence in council space. Kate's stomach dropped. She learned to dread that particular tone. It usually preceded another restriction on human activity. The chamber's central hologram flickered to life, displaying a sleek, silvery suit. It looked like a second skin, complete with a transparent helmet and built-in atmospheric processors. The Containment and Safety Enhancement Suit, Cruel announced with what passed for pride among their species. Required wear for all humans in public spaces. It will neutralize your species' natural aggressive aura, filter all bodily emissions, and dampen your excessive physical capabilities to acceptable levels. The chamber fell silent, waiting for her response. Kate stared at the rotating hologram, her mind racing through the implications. The suit wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a mobile prison designed to suppress everything that made humans human. She thought of the human medical teams working triple shifts during the Pleiades Plague, saving millions while wearing already restrictive protective gear. She remembered the mining crews who'd braved collapsed tunnels to rescue trapped alien workers, only to be blamed for the initial cave-in. Every concession, every restriction, every time humans had smiled and nodded and adjusted to increasingly absurd demands. With deliberate slowness, Kate reached up and removed her translator. The small device felt heavy in her hand, 15 years of diplomatic weight compressed into a few ounces of technology. She looked at each delegate in turn, meeting their various sensory organs with steady human eyes. The chamber erupted in untranslated noise as she let the device fall. It clattered against the floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly chaotic space. Superior Guide Ven's crystalline form vibrated in distress, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the walls. Several delegates activated their personal protection fields. Kate allowed herself a small, genuine smile, the first she'd worn in the chamber for years. She turned on her boot heels clicking against the marble floor as she walked toward the exit. Just before the doors, she paused and began whistling, "Take Me Home." Country roads, the simple earth tomb echoing through the panicked chamber. Emergency containment fields snapped into place behind her as she stepped into the corridor. Kate kept whistling as she walked away from 15 years of diplomatic cooperation, her steps lighter with each meter of distance from the council chamber. The personal log of Dr. Catherine Marshall flickered to life in her private quarters aboard the HSS Endeavour. Her fingers traced the edge of the bourbon glass as she watched the recordings from the past decade scroll past. Each file represented a moment when humanity had bent over backward to accommodate the Council's fears. Log entry 2187. Vraxian colony incident. Her own voice echoed through the room. The holographic display showed humans in bulky dampening suits, their movements sluggish as they worked to repair the colony's failing solar shields. Lethal radiation poured from the dying star above. Yet the Vraxian authorities had insisted the humans wear equipment that reduced their efficiency by 60%. 26 hours to complete what should have taken 10, Kate muttered, taking a sip of bourbon. The recording continued, showing the aftermath. Humans collapsed from heat exhaustion inside their restrictive suits, while the Vraxian governor complained about the repair time in an official report to the council. She skipped forward to another entry. The mining disaster on Kepler 447 bits filled her quarters with the sound of falling rocks and emergency alerts. The footage showed human rescue teams arriving first, their natural strength and endurance making them ideal for the dangerous work. They'd pulled 37 alien miners from the collapse. Initial rescue successful, her past self narrated, but subsequent investigation blamed human mining techniques for the collapse. The recording didn't show the weeks of hearings that followed, or the additional restrictions placed on human mining operations throughout council space. Kate stood, walking to the viewport as the next log began automatically. The Great Plague had swept through council space like wildfire, overwhelming medical facilities. Humans, with their robust immune systems and ability to work longer hours, had been essential to containing the outbreak. The footage showed Dr. Sarah Collins, working her fourth straight day, at the Centauri Medical Hub. The dampening collar around her neck blinked red, warning that she was exceeding recommended energy outputs. She ignored it, continuing to treat patients while alien medical staff took their mandated rest periods. "We lost Sarah 3 months later," Kate whispered to her reflection in the viewport. "Heart attack." The dampening collar had stressed her system beyond recovery. The council ruled it was due to natural human aggressive tendencies and mandated stronger dampening fields in medical facilities. The next series of logs played in quick succession. Human peacekeepers preventing pirate raids while wearing reaction dampening gear. Construction crews rebuilding damaged habitats with strength limiters. Scientists making breakthroughs despite restricted access to their own equipment. A soft chime interrupted the playback. "Dr. Marshall, incoming transmission from Human Systems Alliance Command," the ship's computer announced. "Display," Kate ordered, turning from the viewport. The familiar face of Admiral Chen appeared, his expression grim. "Kate, we've received your report from the council session. The containment suit proposal was the last straw. The Alliance has decided to implement Protocol Omega." She nodded, having expected this. "How long?" "The withdrawal begins in 48 hours. All human personnel in restricted zones are to return to human space immediately. No exceptions." The bourbon glass paused halfway to her lips. The Pleiades Medical Station. The Deep Space Construction Projects. All of it, Kate. We've spent years documenting every restriction, every accusation, every time we smiled and adjusted while they treated us like barely contained monsters. The evidence package is ready for release to the general public across council space. Kate set down her glass and straightened her uniform. They won't understand at first. They'll call it an aggressive action. Admiral Chen's laugh held no humor. They call everything we do aggressive. At least this time, we're choosing to act rather than react. The withdrawal order goes out in 2 hours. You should get some rest. The transmission ended, leaving Kate alone with her logs. On the display, another recording showed humans working tirelessly to save lives and build communities, all while wearing devices designed to make them less human. Computer, save log compilation and encrypt. Title: When We Tried. She finished her bourbon in one swallow. And send a message to my sister in Montana. Tell her to get the ranch ready. I'm coming home. The stars outside her viewport seemed to shine brighter as the HSS Endeavour prepared to break orbit from the Council capital world. Soon, those stars would witness humanity's quiet exit from Council space and the chaos that would follow. The Council chambers erupted into chaos as the Human Systems Alliance announcement played on every screen, terminal, and holographic display throughout galactic space. Kate watched from the comfort of her ship's bridge as the carefully worded message scrolled across displays in all 27 Council languages. Effective immediately, all human personnel are withdrawing from safety-restricted zones. The HSA thanks the Galactic Council for their previous cooperation and wishes them continued success in their endeavors. Short, simple, devastating. Captain Miguel Rodriguez of the HSS Endeavour turned to Kate with a slight smirk. That's got to be the politest go-yourselves in diplomatic history. 15 years of practice, Kate replied, watching the first wave of messages flood the emergency channels. How long until the first economic impacts hit? Already happening. Rodriguez gestured to another screen showing the galactic exchange numbers plummeting. Phyrexian shipping just lost 60% of their value. Turns out investors get nervous when all your human engineers walk out mid-shift. The bridge crew maintained professional composure as they monitored the unfolding situation. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes at Communications barely concealed her satisfaction as she reported, first distress calls coming in from the Centauri Medical Hub. Apparently, they just realized all their human doctors were serious about leaving. Kate moved to the tactical display, watching the synchronized departure of human ships across Council space. The HSA had planned this for years, positioning evacuation vessels near every major human population center. Status of the evacuation. Proceeding ahead of schedule, Rodriguez replied. Most humans had go-bags packed. Funny how being treated like a walking disaster makes you prepare for quick exits. A priority message flashed across the main screen. The Galactic Council was demanding an emergency session. Kate allowed herself a small smile as she sent the automated response. We thank you for your invitation, but must decline due to safety concerns regarding human aggressive tendencies. Ma'am, Hayes called out, you need to see this. She brought up footage from the Nexus Trade Hub, the largest commercial center in Council space. Human shopkeepers were calmly closing their businesses, while alien customers practically begged them to stay. The famous human spice market section was already empty, its valuable cargo loaded hours before the announcement. The footage shifted to the engineering sectors. Alien supervisors watched helplessly as human technicians powered down systems, logged out of networks, and walked away from half-finished projects. Each human carried a data pad showing the same message: contract terminated due to safety restrictions. They're starting to understand, Rodriguez observed, pointing to new market data. Centaurian Heavy Industries just offered to triple human wages and remove all safety restrictions. Too late, Kate murmured, watching more ships jump to hyperspace. Computer, display status of Protocol Omega. The screen filled with green completion markers. Human medical personnel, 82% evacuated. Engineering crews, 91% withdrawn. Security forces, 75% redistributed to human space. Construction teams, 88% removed from Council projects. A notification pinged, marking the departure of the last human ship from the Pleiades Medical Hub. The massive facility, designed to handle thousands of patients, would now operate at 30% capacity. Similar reports flooded in from across Council space as humanity quietly extracted itself from the infrastructure it helped build and maintain. New message from the Council, Hayes announced. They're offering to reconsider the containment suit proposal. Kate didn't even bother responding. Instead, she authorized the release of the evidence package. 15 years of documented restrictions, accidents caused by safety equipment, lives lost to council paranoia, and the countless times humans had saved lives while enduring prejudice. "Let's go home," she ordered, settling into her command chair. Full power to the dampening field, of course. Wouldn't want to frighten anyone with our aggressive engine signatures. The bridge crew laughed as Rodriguez engaged the drive. Behind them, the council capital world grew smaller, its perfectly ordered society about to experience life without the humans they'd feared so much. "Ma'am," Hayes said softly, "do you think they'll figure it out?" Kate watched the emergency broadcasts multiply across the network, each one more desperate than the last. They're about to learn the difference between having dangerous allies and having no allies at all. She paused, considering. "I give them a week before something breaks that only humans would volunteer to fix." The HSS Endeavour jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy learning a very expensive lesson about the true meaning of human aggression and the value of human patience. The luxury cruise ship Starlight Dreamer drifted helplessly in the void between Proxima Centauri and Bernard Star. Captain Xilax of the Thoraxian fleet watched in dismay as warning lights flashed across his command console. The ship's quantum drive had suffered a catastrophic failure, the kind their human engineering team used to fix during routine maintenance. "Status report," he chittered, his mandibles clicking with anxiety. "All systems failing, Captain," his first officer reported. "Engineering teams can't handle the radiation levels in the drive section. The human maintenance crew would." She trailed off, remembering that their human workers had departed 3 days ago. The passenger manifest scrolled across his screen. 2,000 souls from 30 different species. None possessed the natural radiation resistance needed to reach the drive core. The humans had always handled these repairs, their robust biology allowing them to work in conditions that would kill most species. "Send another distress call," Xilax ordered. "Sir, there's a vessel approaching," his sensor officer announced. "It's pirates. Crackstonian raiders." Xilax's antennae drooped. The Crackstonians had been suspiciously active since the human withdrawal. Without human security teams patrolling the shipping lanes, the pirates grew bolder by the hour. The raiders' transmission crackled through the bridge speakers. "Starlight Dreamer, your human protectors are gone. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in atmospheric venting." Across council space, similar scenes played out. The luxury resort planet of New Venus reported its first successful pirate raid in 50 years. The automated defense systems, normally maintained by human technicians, failed to activate. The pirates knew exactly when to strike, the moment humanity stepped away. Kate watched the reports flood in from her family ranch in Montana. Her personal quantum terminal displayed dozens of emergency broadcasts, each highlighting another failure point in council space. "They really didn't think this through, did they?" her sister Emma asked, setting down 2 cups of coffee on the porch rail. "They spent so much time worrying about containing human aggression," Kate replied. "They never considered we were containing everyone else's." A new alert flashed across her screen. The Centauri Medical Hub had lost its first patient due to equipment failure. The maintenance schedule, designed around human endurance levels, proved impossible for other species to maintain. Critical systems began failing within days of the human departure. "Another distress call from the Starlight Dreamer," Emma noted, pointing to a flashing icon. "Think we should tell them about the backup human engineering team that used to hide in the radiation-shielded maintenance shaft?" Kate shook her head. "Let them figure it out. We spent years creating redundancies and failsafes, working double shifts, taking on the most dangerous jobs because we could handle them. Time they learned what that meant." The quantum terminal chimed with an update from the Human Systems Alliance. Piracy rates had increased 400% in former human-patrolled sectors. 3 major shipping companies had declared bankruptcy after losing vessels to raiders. The Council's response fleets, accustomed to human support, proved inadequate against determined attackers. "Look at this," Emma said, bringing up footage from a space station near Alpha Centauri. The station's atmospheric processors had failed, leading to panic among the residents. The emergency repair protocols all assumed the presence of human maintenance crews, who could work without environmental suits in sections exposed to vacuum. "They're adapting," Kate observed, watching alien crews attempt repairs in cumbersome protective gear. "Slowly. Too slowly," Emma replied. 2 more casualties reported in the radiation cleanup sector. They still haven't figured out how to operate the containment systems without human oversight. The sisters sat in silence, watching the stars emerge over the Montana mountains. Each point of light represented another sector where humanity had quietly maintained order, not through aggressive action, but through their unique ability to handle the jobs no one else could or would. Kate's terminal lit up with another emergency broadcast. The Starlight Dreamer had gone dark, its last transmission cut short by the approaching raiders. The Council's response fleet remained hours away, delayed by equipment failures their human technicians used to prevent. "They wanted us contained," Kate murmured, sipping her coffee. "Looks like they got their wish. We're perfectly contained, right here in human space, watching their perfect society crumble without our dangerous, aggressive tendency to help." The Montana night grew darker, and somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, Earth predators that humanity had learned to live alongside, rather than fear and contain. The emergency ward of the Centauri Medical Hub resembled a scene from pre-spaceflight chaos, rather than the epitome of galactic healthcare. Dr. Xilith, Chief Medical Officer, stared at the mounting casualty reports with all 4 of his eyes. The fatality rate had tripled since the human medical teams departed. "Sir," his assistant buzzed nervously, 3 more critical patients in the trauma wing. The surgical automation systems are failing without their maintenance cycles. Dr. Xilith chittered in frustration. The humans had maintained those systems during their rest periods, which he now realized meant working 20-hour shifts while their alien colleagues slept. "How many surgeons do we have available?" 2, sir. The others reached their mandated rest period. The humans used 2. The assistant trailed off, remembering the empty quarters where human doctors once lived. Across the station, similar scenes unfolded. The famous Centaurian restaurant district, known for its exotic cuisines, sat largely abandoned. The kitchens, designed to handle temperatures that would cook most species, had always been staffed by humans who treated the extreme heat as a minor inconvenience. In the construction sector, the massive expansion project ground to a halt. The huge skeletal framework of the new medical wing loomed untouched. Its specialized welding required human hands capable of manipulating plasma torches in vacuum conditions. "Status update," Station Director Venn demanded during the Emergency Council meeting. The crystalline being's surface flickered with stress patterns. "Life support operating at 60% efficiency," the engineering chief reported. "The human maintenance crews used to handle repairs in the radioactive sections. We've lost access to critical systems without them." "The council promised replacement workers," Venn stated. "They sent them. 3 shifts worth." The chief projected images of the replacement teams struggling with equipment. "They can't match the human work cycles. We're falling behind on basic maintenance, let alone emergency repairs." A warning klaxon interrupted the meeting. The station's primary power core showed signs of instability, another system the humans had maintained during their off hours. In the military sector, the situation proved equally dire. Captain Merricks of the Council Defense Fleet watched his ships struggle through basic maneuvers. The human crews had operated their most dangerous systems, handling radiation levels and gravitational stresses that would kill most species. Another drive failure in the 3rd Squadron, his tactical officer reported. "Without human engineers, we can't maintain combat readiness above 40%. The Council assured us their restrictions on humans were necessary for safety," Merricks growled. "They never mentioned the humans were keeping us safe from ourselves." The quantum communications network buzzed with similar reports across Council space. The Thoraxian shipyards, pride of the manufacturing sector, reported production down by 70%. Their most advanced ships required human teams for final assembly, working in conditions too hazardous for automated systems. Back at the medical hub, Dr. Xilith received the latest casualty figures. A simple power fluctuation, the kind human technicians once fixed between shifts, had knocked out life support to 3 recovery wards. The backup systems, normally maintained weekly, failed to engage. "Sir," his assistant interrupted his dark thoughts. "We found something in the human quarters." The footage showed neat rows of manual repair kits, each labeled with precise instructions. Emergency medical procedures, simplified for non-human medical staff. Maintenance guides marked, "just in case." The humans had prepared for their departure, leaving behind the means for survival, if the council races could adapt quickly enough. They weren't aggressive, Dr. Xilith realized, reading through the carefully prepared documentation. They were protective, and we treated them like monsters. The station shuddered as another system failed. In the distance, the unmaintained radiation shields began to deteriorate. Warning lights flashed across every deck as the full impact of humanity's absence made itself felt. Director Ven's crystalline form resonated with decision patterns. "Contact the council. Tell them." Another system failure interrupted the transmission. In the ensuring darkness, illuminated only by emergency lighting, the director finished quietly. "Tell them we were wrong." But the humans were gone, back to their death world, leaving behind a galaxy learning the hard way that what they had feared as aggression had actually been protection. The systems they had tried so hard to contain were the very ones keeping their civilization running. And in the growing chaos, no one was left to work the impossible shifts, brave the lethal conditions, or find solutions to problems that couldn't be solved. Kate sat on her Montana porch, bourbon in hand, watching the emergency broadcasts light up her quantum terminal like a Christmas tree. The von Neumann probe swarm, dormant for millennia, had chosen this particular moment to wake up and begin its programmed expansion through the Orion arm. "Talk about timing," Emma commented, bringing out fresh coffee. "Remember when we discovered that first probe cluster 10 years ago?" "Yeah," Kate smiled grimly. "Humans contained it while wearing those ridiculous dampening suits. The council never knew how close they came to disaster." The terminal displayed real-time footage of the swarm consuming an uninhabited system. Self-replicating machines turned asteroids into more probes, their efficiency terrifying in its perfection. The Council response fleet maintained a safe distance, their weapons unable to penetrate the swarm's adaptive shields. "Emergency transmission from Council space," the terminal announced. "Priority 1. Kate took another sip of bourbon. Display. High Mediator Krull's tentacled form appeared, their usually pristine purple membranes showing signs of stress. "Dr. Marshall, the Council requests immediate human assistance with a Level 10 threat. We are prepared to remove all previous restrictions and—" "Message received," Kate interrupted. "Please handle it yourselves. We're dangerous, remember." She cut the transmission as another Council ship retreated from the swarm. The probes had already consumed 3 systems, their exponential growth matching predictive models exactly. "They're going to lose this one," Emma observed, watching the tactical display. "Their ships can't maintain combat operations long enough to matter. Not without human crews handling the dangerous systems." Kate nodded. The Council races, for all their advanced technology, had grown dependent on humans managing their most hazardous operations. Now they faced an enemy that never tired, never needed rest, and had no safety protocols to override. "New footage from the front," the terminal announced. The latest images showed Council ships attempting coordinated attacks, but their formations broke apart as system failures forced them to withdraw. Without human maintenance teams, their vessels couldn't sustain extended combat operations. "Remember Lieutenant Chen's solution last time?" Emma asked. "When he reconfigured the mining lasers to overload the probe's replication systems, while wearing a suit that limited his radiation exposure and reaction time to safe levels." Kate added. Still pulled it off. Council called it recklessly aggressive behavior and added 3 new safety regulations. The quantum terminal chimed again. Multiple council members appearing on split screens, their various physiologies all displaying signs of extreme stress. Dr. Marshall, Superior Guide Ven began, their crystalline form vibrating with urgency. The probes have breached the Centauri sector defense line. We estimate 3 days until they reach populated systems. Please. Kate cut them off too. You have our documentation. The containment procedures we developed last time are detailed in Section 47B. Good luck. Emma raised an eyebrow. Those procedures were designed for human implementation. They'll figure that out, Kate replied, watching more council ships retreat from the advancing swarm. Eventually, the sisters sat in silence as the stars emerged above the Montana mountains. Each point of light represented another system where humanity had quietly maintained watch, handling threats the Council never knew existed. The buffer zone between human and Council space had always been humanity's first line of defense, not against alien aggression, but against ancient dangers they'd discovered and contained. Another Council transmission, the terminal reported. Text only. The message was brief. We understand now. Kate finished her bourbon. Do they? They're about to, Emma answered. They wanted us contained, restricted, and controlled. Said we were too dangerous to handle our own abilities. She paused, looking at the stars. Let them experience what real danger feels like without humanity's aggressive tendency to run toward it. The night deepened over Montana, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled at the moon. On Kate's terminal, the dots representing the probe swarm continued their inexorable advance through Council space, teaching a lesson about the true nature of threat and protection that no diplomatic session ever could. The Council chambers had never been so quiet. On the central display, evidence files from 15 years of human service scrolled past, each one striking like a physical blow. Superior Guide Ven's crystalline form vibrated with emotional patterns never before recorded in their species. Display file 2187B. High Mediator Cruel ordered, their tentacles unusually still. The hologram shifted to show human medical teams during the Great Plague. Dr. Sarah Collins, wearing a mandatory dampening collar, worked through her 72nd hour of emergency care. The footage showed her heart rate climbing dangerously as the collar restricted her natural endurance. Pause. Cruel commanded. Correlate with medical records. New data appeared. Dr. Collins had died 3 months later. The official cause, natural human aggressive tendencies. The real cause, now obvious in the medical data, was systematic organ failure from prolonged dampening field exposure. She knew, one of the younger delegates whispered. The medical data shows she knew the collar was killing her. She kept working anyway. Next file, Ven ordered, their voice uncharacteristically rough. Security footage from the Centauri deep mining operation filled the chamber. Human rescue teams, wearing restriction suits that limited their strength and speed, fighting through collapsed tunnels to reach trapped miners. The timestamps showed them working hours past the safe exposure limit for their dampening equipment. We blamed them for the collapse, a mining guild representative noted. Added more restrictions. They never mentioned they'd detected the structural weakness before the incident. Because we wouldn't have believed them, Kroll responded. We were too focused on containing their aggressive tendencies to recognize their protective instincts. The evidence continued mounting. Footage showed humans working triple shifts in radiation zones, maintaining critical systems during their rest periods, quietly handling threats the Council never knew existed. Each file detailed restrictions that had been added despite, or because of, successful human intervention. A new alert flashed across the screens. The von Neumann swarm had consumed another system. Council forces, attempting to implement human containment procedures without human assistance, had suffered devastating losses. Play the Patterson recording, Ven requested. The chamber filled with the voice of Lieutenant James Patterson, recorded during the first probe encounter. Of course, it's dangerous. That's why we handle it. Better us than you. We're built for this stuff. Just don't add more safety protocols, okay? It's hard enough reaching the override controls in these dampening suits. Silence fell as the recording ended. The council members watched their carefully maintained illusion of control crumble under the weight of evidence. They protected us, a young Zetarian delegate realized. Not just from external threats, from our own fears. The quantum terminal chimed with another update. A group of students at the Galactic University had begun analyzing human activity patterns before the withdrawal. Their findings painted a stark picture. Humans had been operating at maximum capacity within their restrictions, finding ways to maintain crucial systems despite increasingly debilitating safety protocols. Display casualties since human withdrawal, Krull ordered. The numbers appeared, damning in their simplicity. Death rates had tripled. Critical system failures had increased by 800%. Piracy, once contained by human security teams working in unnecessarily aggressive patrol patterns, threatened major trade routes. They didn't just leave, Venn observed, their crystalline surface reflecting patterns of deep distress. They stopped protecting us. From everything, including ourselves. The chamber's archival system displayed one final file. The maintenance logs from the council's own building. Humans had been quietly repairing critical systems during off hours, finding ways around restrictions to keep things running. They'd documented everything, knowing this day might come. A message flashed across all screens. Another council world had fallen to the probe swarm. The evacuation, attempted without human security coordination, had descended into chaos. Contact Dr. Marshall, Krull ordered. Response received, the system announced. Message reads, watching the news. Good luck with those safety protocols. The council chambers, built to celebrate unity among species, now witnessed a different kind of unification. The shared realization of a terrible mistake. They had feared human aggression so much they had blinded themselves to human protection. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the policies and protocols of those who lived among them. But now, those stars seemed colder, more dangerous, just as humanity had always known them to be. Dr. Catherine Marshall's boots echoed through the council chamber corridors, each step measured and deliberate. The marble floors, once a symbol of oppressive regulation, now felt different under her feet. No dampening suit restricted her movement. No safety protocols monitored her aggressive aura. Behind her walked Captain Rodriguez and a small contingent of human representatives, all wearing standard uniforms without modification. The message was clear. Humanity would return as equals, not as contained threats. The chamber doors opened, revealing a dramatically changed council. Gone were the protective fields and atmospheric barriers. The Sarlaxian representatives didn't flinch at human proximity. The Vraxians had removed their sensitivity shields. Dr. Marshall, High Mediator Krull, greeted her, tentacles moving in their species' gesture of deepest respect. Welcome back. Kate took her place at the podium, noting the empty space where her old translator had shattered. A new one waited, but this time it was a choice, not a requirement. The Human Systems Alliance has reviewed your proposal, she began, her words carrying across the chamber without electronic assistance. We have terms. Superior Guide Ven's crystalline form sparkled with agreement patterns. The Council accepts that our previous policies were misguided. Misguided. Captain Rodriguez muttered, just loud enough to carry. The von Neumann swarm reached 6 populated systems because you couldn't handle our containment procedures without us. Kate held up a hand, silencing further commentary. Our terms are simple. Humanity will return to Council space under the Equal Species Act. No special restrictions. No safety protocols specific to humans. We work as we are, or we don't work at all. The council chamber remained silent as she continued. We will resume our duties. Medical, engineering, security, and maintenance. We will help contain the probe swarm, rebuild damaged systems, and restore order to affected regions. And in return, Cruel asked. You accept us as we are. Yes, we're stronger than most species. Yes, we work longer hours and take what you consider unnecessary risks. That's not aggression. It's adaptation. We come from a world that taught us to run toward danger, not away from it. A young Zetarian delegate stepped forward. The casualty reports since your departure. We never understood how much you protected us. No, Kate agreed. You didn't. You were too busy protecting yourselves from us to notice we were protecting you from everything else. She placed a data crystal on the podium. This contains the Human Integration Protocol. Not rules for containing us, but guidelines for working with us. Learn them. The crystal projected its contents. Simple, straightforward principles for cooperation between species. No dampening fields. No restriction suits. No mandatory rest periods for those who didn't need them. The vote stands at unanimous acceptance, Venn announced. The Equal Species Act is now law throughout Council space. Kate allowed herself a small smile. Then let's get to work. The probe swarm won't contain itself. As if on cue, her quantum comm buzzed with updates. Human ships were already moving to engage the threat, their crews unrestricted by safety protocols for the first time in 15 years. Engineering teams prepared to restore critical systems, their natural capabilities finally unleashed. One more thing, Kate added, turning back to the council. A human child and a Zetarian child were seen playing in the park outside. There were no safety barriers between them. Let's keep it that way. The chamber erupted in agreement signals from all species present. As Kate walked out, Captain Rodriguez fell in step beside her. Think they've really learned? He asked. She glanced back at the chamber, where council members were already coordinating with human emergency response teams. They learned the hard way that danger doesn't care about safety protocols. Sometimes you need the dangerous species on your side. Outside, the stars shone as they always had, filled with both threats and opportunities. But now, humanity could face them as they were meant to, not contained or restricted, but free to protect and preserve in their own uniquely aggressive way. Time to go to work, Kate announced, boarding her shuttle. I hear there's a probe swarm that needs containing. The ship lifted off, carrying humanity's representatives back into council space, not as monsters to be feared, but as guardians to be valued. The Deathworlders had reached their limit, stopped being nice, and in doing so, taught the galaxy the true meaning of protection.